Hey, RV Renovation Nation.
Welcome to the New Look RV Renovation podcast.
It's a podcast now.
Woo! Do you have questions about RV renovation?
Well, we're sitting down with a variety of renovators who are in the know.
Think of it as a bunch of friends sitting around the campfire sharing renovation stories. I'm April Look.
And I'm Derek Look.
And we are New Look RV Renovation. On today's episode, we sit down with Lisa and Wes Rice of Rice Camp.
It was so great chatting with these two.
Lisa Rice found herself with her first job out of college, more excited to decorate her office than for the actual job itself, which I can totally relate to. Pair that with a handy husband and a love for camping, and they began renovating tent trailers.
So we find out how they shop for those trailers, they share their renovation and sewing tips, and as well as how to properly store a tent trailer. And you'll also want to hear how they found a practical and inexpensive way to actually put quartz countertops in an RV.
Lisa explains what might be the best tool that's literally right under your nose when selecting a trailer. Many of these tips and tricks apply to all RVs.
And Rice Camp's legit. They've been featured in the Wall Street Journal, the Insider, and in the book All Things Camper Renovation.
So, without further ado, let's get into it and chat with Lisa and Wes and find out how you can give your RV a new look.
So Lisa and Wes, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
So excited to have you guys.
So you guys are out in Portland, is that right?
Yeah, we're in the suburb of Portland.
So, we just want to begin, asking you guys a little bit how you really got into, renovations, DIY, specifically, RV renovation, but maybe even taking a step back from that. Like, how is this something you grew up around? Like, how did you guys get handy?
I've always loved design since I was a kid, and we went to college together, and we both majored in psychology. And I got a job as a career counselor right out of college. And I had my office, and I was like more excited to decorate the office and set it up than to do the actual job. And I thought, I think I majored in the wrong thing. But I've always loved design, and I knew I wanted to do something with it later on. We got married. We have renovated several homes together, and that's kind of how we learned how to DIY things.
Yeah, growing up, my dad was very handy. So whether it was a car problem or a house problem, you get raised where he's always fixing something. So in my mind, it's like, well, can we fix it? Yes, we can. It's kind of what we always say around here.
Bob the Builder.
Yeah, we do too.
Exactly. So, from that approach, it's like, well, we can sit back and figure it out and you get DIY from that. So growing up, that is kind of just ingrained in me.
Our current home that we live in here is a 1970s fixer, and about 5 years ago we were like, oh well, we've pretty much done most of the projects, although they're still coming 5 years later. And I thought I want to do more design stuff, so I thought, why not do trailers? We love being outside, we love the outdoors. So I looked for the ugliest, cheapest tent trailer I could find. And I found one for $400, and I loved it. I bought another one before I had even sold that one, and just really loved doing that as a hobby.
When you say tent trailer, that also means pop-up, right? Like, is that the interchangeable terminology?
Correct.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. And just for people that might not be aware, can you guys kind of define like what a tent trailer or a pop-up is? Can you there might be some people who have no clue what that even means.
Tent trailers are
they're designed to be small and so you can easily store them, as well as light, so you can easily tow them. Right. They are typically, when you see them going down the road, they just look like a rectangle or a box going down the road. And then once you get to the location, you open them up, and kind of like a tent, they got a crank, raises the roof, and they got slides that pull off on either side, and those are the beds. So it's almost like a transformer in a sense. And so that's kind of the generic, because there's several different types. There's hybrid ones, which are kind of a hard shell, and they have a slide out, and those are typically beds as well. But this, we found for where we're at in storage and transport that pop-ups seem to be the ideal for us, especially because when you're inside, when they open up, the tent they feel
open. And
Yeah,
airy.
open, airy, and stuff like that. Yeah.
How did you guys get into camping in the first place? Was that something it's been ingrained in you since you guys were kids, or something you brought to your family?
Yeah, we both grew up camping with our families. My parents had an old Apache tent trailer growing up, and then we just went to tent camping after that. And
Yeah, we had a camper growing up as well. We did a lot of camping, just touring I think growing up, one of the best memories I had was that we took a 3-week vacation with our camper, and you'd travel around the United States and see all the major national parks and stuff. And that was something I think, I don't know, I was probably 10, 11, somewhere in that range, where it's just so many good memories. And I was like, every time I think about camping, the nostalgia of growing up and having those memories and stuff. It's like, now that I'm that age, I want to offer that to, our kids and stuff and share those same experiences. And so as we get with Lisa's love of design and our love of camping, it's like, well, when we put them together, growing up, it was always camping and design were never together.
Everybody does this kind of jokes about it, but it seems like there was one designer for all RVs, and they love the color brown.
Yeah.
When in doubt, put a brown.
So, Lisa, tell us about that first tent trailer that you found.
So it was a 1978 trailer, and it was so ugly, but it was in great condition, and that's something that I always look for when I'm looking for a tent trailer. I don't want structural problems. I just want to do the cosmetic stuff. A lady was selling it for her brother that had just passed away, and she just wanted to get rid of it, but it had been stored undercover inside for all those years. So it was in good shape. The canvas, everything was great. So
wow, that's like ideal situation.
Yes. Yeah, for sure.
When you say late 70s, like that actually just blows my mind, because I feel like anything before 1994, like it for sure out here at least, like they're completely rusted out. There's no chance that they actually crank up. Like, so that just sounds like it must have been in a museum.
Well, that was the thing. I had the same mindset as you did, because Lisa had presented. She's like, hey, I found a pop-up trailer. I'm like, okay, what year? And she told me what year. I was like, oh gosh, those things aren't really made for like investment purposes, and they're not made for quality. They're made for being used. And I will admit, I was dragging my feet as much as I could to do this first one, because I didn't want to get a money pit. I didn't want to get something that would. I just didn't know.
So when we started, Wes was like not on board. He was like, "This can be your thing, Lisa. You just run with it, go for it." $400 isn't a huge investment just to try it out.
I figure if I lose $400, I'm okay with that. That's worst case scenario that I write it off.
Thanks for the support.
But I knew what she could do, so I will say that I know what she can do, what she's capable of. So
the first couple, he was like, "You just go for it, have fun, do your thing." And then he kind of caught the vision. Wes is way more particular than I am about things now.
She's got the vision. I got the labor.
So he does the flooring and the trim and towing, and then I do the design and the painting and
the cosmetic,
everything else. But yeah.
Well, yeah, and like you said, they're such a great fit because they're very very lightweight. So there's a lot of mid small size SUVs that can pull them, and we took ours all the way out to South Dakota. We just had a Toyota Highlander at the time. We got a lot of use out of it. We had it for 2 or 3 years.
Yeah,
before we moved on to like a hard side RV or a travel trailer. But
did you guys remodel that pop-up?
We did.
Or just use it? You did?
Yeah, no, we did remodel it. Yeah, that was our first renovation.
Yeah, at one point we owned a pop-up, and we bought, like we said, we bought a travel trailer, and we remodeled that. And then so we had both units kind of sitting outside our house, and we live in a residential area. So felt a little bit like, I don't know how the neighbors felt about that one. But
we know about that.
But then we ended up selling them both in the same week. And so that was kind of, what got us rolling. We're like, oh, wow, okay.
And so with that first pop-up, did you know that you were going to be selling it, or had you originally been like doing it for your family?
I'll fix it up and then
Yeah, we
we'll
like to
take it
use
out
them
camping
and
then we'll sell it. But that first one, we just turned it around and sold it.
like that one was on the smaller side. And so we didn't know what we were getting into. So we got it, hey, maybe we'll use it. We'll take it out. But we realized when we got it home, it's like, well, this isn't quite what we were thinking
Do you remember when Jack fell out the back?
Yeah. So our son he fell out the back off the back bed because it didn't have the canvas didn't really wrap around and connect.
Yeah, because they just stretch with elastic like around.
They do, and this didn't even have that. It was just kind of a flop over the side. And so he was one,
and he just rolled off the bed. But luckily, he rolled onto grass. He was fine.
Yeah.
But I was like, I don't know about keeping this.
And the previous owner had removed a couple of the key components like the stove and the sink and some of the other elements of it. And we're like, well, we want one a little bigger. So we ended up selling that one, after we modeled it. So
is this the oldest one you've done? The first one? Or
So I guess the last one I moved back. But until then, I was just getting newer and newer and newer each time, like up a decade. It's much easier to renovate one that's newer, as we've learned. So I don't know if I would go back.
How would you characterize the changes like in those decades? Like what changes? What's noticeable?
So the cranking
system.
up the canvas. On the old ones, it was like really hard to crank, and then now they're a lot nicer. A lot of times, it's hard to find one with good canvas.
Yeah.
Those are the main things. The layout, everything else is pretty.
And
much
the overall
the same.
wear and tear. I would say just the older ones naturally have more wear and tear, but definitely I would say with pop-ups, it's the crank is one of the main things, because if the crank goes bad, if the pulley system goes wrong, then
it doesn't work.
It doesn't work.
Yeah.
So
have
that's
you guys
one of the main
had
things.
to fix one of those yet?
We did.
One of them. Yeah.
So,
I think the one from the 80s.
That's one of those things that, we talk about, hey, maybe we should do one of these again. And that's one of those things, of course, that's scary in the back of my mind, never having had to replace that system. Like, what was that like? How tedious of a process, or not? Like, you had to restring cables throughout that?
Well, we were going to. I started researching what it would take, and then I started calculating, well, what's my time worth versus hiring this part out, because it was one of those things. It's like, well, on that first one, we didn't know what to do. We were trying to diagnose it. We actually called in on that particular one, because it was our second one, I think.
Yeah.
I actually had to call someone to kind of come out and take care of that element, because
it got fixed.
It worked out. Yeah. But, I think it's one of those things as we go forward, because we did look at one, and as we were looking at it, the guy goes, hey, he didn't want to open it up or close it. It was one of those things, like he didn't want to use the pulley system unless we gave him cash. And I was like, well, that's a red flag to me, because I won't be able to open and close it without any surprises. So you realize even just cranking it, the smoothness and how it functions and how it's been maintained, one of those features that I think easily overlooked, especially for someone just getting in. Yeah. You don't realize, that could be a big problem if it collapses, especially if you're out camping or something.
Oh my gosh, absolutely.
Can I ask what the ballpark was on that repair?
It was in the 200s.
Yeah, it wasn't too bad.
Yeah, that's probably not worth it.
Because when I got the quote, I was like, well, yeah, for that, by the time I get my parts, I'm almost to that point anyway. So might as well just pay it. Yeah. Now if it was like, more than that, it's like, well, we'll open it up and take it apart. But I think that was getting late in the season on that one, because we wanted to get that one wrapped up and taken care of before
the weather
turned. Then you go in the off season, and then you can't really sell it, and you got to hold on to it longer.
I remember looking at April said when we were searching for pop-ups, we looked at a lot of them, and there was an older guy that was selling one, and he acted almost like offended that we wanted to, run it up and down and slide it in and out, and he didn't want us to do that. So
giant red flag.
We got out of there. Yeah. So have you ever done like a really new one, like one of these that has electric, motors for going up and down and all that sort of thing? Or
not yet, but hopefully someday.
Yeah, kind of working our way. Yeah.
Right. I think the newest one we've done is 2004. That was the newest in it.
Have you guys ever had to repair a canvas or screen or anything like that?
When I look for them, I make sure that this canvas and the screens are in really good shape. So I say no to a lot.
Yeah, there's a few deal breakers when looking for them, because there's some that are very tempting, but you see certain issues, whether it's with the canvas or something, it's like, well, it might be nice everywhere else, but if that's a problem, it's not worth taking on, at least for us.
Right. No, those get pricey.
Yeah, I think it can be like around $1,000, I've heard, to replace the canvas. And I think with patches, sometimes it doesn't look super nice.
Agreed. Yeah.
So I just try and buy ones from
that.
Well, and it's so easy to, like, if you're not paying attention, like to improperly zip in like those plastic, like if there's an inside plastic UV cover or whatever, like, or things aren't tucked in quite right, at least with the older one we had, if you push the slides in, like I put a couple rips in.
Yes.
And maybe not the screen, but the plastic part. And yeah, like you said, that's a big bummer.
It is, because it's one of those things you see when you're buying, like, because I feel with pop-ups specifically that they're very, as far as opening them, close them, you got to follow a specific order. And if you get out, you can easily do damage. And several of the people we bought from, you see how meticulous they are. You kind of see who the seller is. One guy knew exactly how many cranks to go up and go down. He's like, you never do more, you never do less. This is exactly what it is. And it was very regimented.
I'm like 52 cranks. He said sometimes 53, but he was like,
I was like, this is the guy I want to buy
I'm
from.
buying that trailer. This is a good trailer.
Yeah. So, because with that, then it's mostly cosmetic, because you don't want to get something in. Because the worst thing is you find a tear, or there's mold or rot or that's hiding and stuff like that. So
the people I try to buy from people that are meticulous, lucked out in finding a few of them.
Yeah, we got a pretty specific list when purchasing of what we look for.
Do you mind kind of walking us through that? Like if you're going out to inspect a pop-up that you might be purchasing, this can be helpful, obviously, for people that are, looking to buy one their own, whether they're going to DIY the fix up or just keep it as is. But can you kind of walk us through a few of those things?
So as you guys probably know, water damage is a big thing, especially in Oregon where it rains a lot. So I always walk around, make sure there aren't any soft spots.
So how do you do that? Like for somebody who's never done it, like what are you doing?
So for the bunk ends, the beds that pull out, I always inspect the bottom, make sure there aren't any signs of water damage. If any of the particle board is bulging, or looks like it's been wet. I look under the mattresses. The flooring, I step everywhere to make sure that it's not soft anywhere. The ceiling, you have to inspect that for.
Yeah, usually if you look up in the corners in the ceiling, you'll see they could potentially be sagging. And so depending on the light, if you look from certain angles, you'll see, because some of that early on, if there's water intrusion, you won't see it right away except for a certain angle. So you kind of put your hands up there, feel around, and because usually your eyes are going down or straight. You don't always look up.
Under the mattress, under the bunk end.
Mm-hmm.
Those are kind of the places where it seems to manifest the most.
Yeah.
On those actual slide outs is where you're seeing water damage, or on the body in the corners?
It can be both. The roof, the ceiling, I always look. The floor, I always look. And then just on the bottom of the bunk end and the top under the mattress.
And when the pop-up's down, take a look at the corners to see if there's any cracking or missing caulk. And if there is, kind of stick your finger, kind of feel around there, because sometimes it's just the caulk could crack and there's no water that happened to get in. Other times water's gotten in there and you just don't know how far the damage is. So
have you guys at this point ever tackled any of that kind of restoration on anything you've come across, or have you just tried to steer clear away from any sort of rig that has water damage whatsoever?
So I steer clear. I just try and buy ones that have been taken care of really well. And just try to stick to cosmetic changes. Sometimes like when the cable system broke, or electrical has sometimes been an issue, but
wheels, bearings, stuff like that.
Try my best to steer clear of any problems, structural problems.
And then beyond like rips and tears and the canvas, what we experienced was just like, I don't know if it's algae or mold, or what the right word is for it, but maybe? Mildew. We had a lot of spots. Have you guys found any methods of coping with that at all? Or again, is that just something you avoid if you see it?
So, I mean, there's a couple things. So I try to steer clear. A lot of times, or when I'm looking for a tent trailer, I go in and you can tell just by the smell if it's been taken care of or not, or if it has mildew or not. so I try to buy ones that don't smell very much, but then I go in and I clean the canvas, clean everything really well. If anything can be zippered off, I wash. I change the upholstery anyway, and the curtains, so all that gets taken down.
Usually when we buy, we ask them to leave it closed up until we get there. And so that way they can open it up while we're there. And so there's not a chance for it to have all the windows open and air circulating, because as it's been closed for a while, as soon as you walk in there, you usually can get a hint if there's a problem. Because there's been several you walk in and it's like, I don't know what I'm breathing here. I don't think I should be in here, even though there's good airflow, but you don't want to be, if there's something else going on like mold or something, you want to.
Right.
And I'm sure that's a question you hit them with like initially, but nobody's pop-up ever smells, right? Like if you ask them, like,
it's always,
there's never soft spots and it never smells.
It's in pristine condition.
Yes.
Well, yeah, because I think you actually drove to the other side of town to look at one.
Yeah.
Because she guaranteed it was.
It's like there aren't any rips and it's in perfect condition. And I was with your mom and I felt bad dragging her out there, but I was like, I think this is going to be a great one.
Good find, yeah.
And they go quick. So if it is a good one. So I drug your mom out there and our kids who were whining in the car. And then I got there and I was like, there's rips all over the place and it stinks. And I was like, this is definitely a no. But
well, I think the other thing is this asking how they're stored. Because if they're stored indoors on cement, sometimes they're stored outside on gravel, or out in the mud and the pasture and the grass. So even if they're closed up, maybe you have a tarp, that moisture gets underneath there. So that's one of the other questions going back to what we look for is like, well, how do you store it come wintertime? And how do you guys winterize it? And
what's the importance of the surface that it's parked on?
Well, if it's here in Oregon specifically, once the winter comes, it's pretty, everything gets wet and moss and everything starts really growing. So if you're parked out in a field and it's just raining nonstop, the moisture can just get underneath there and just, a couple of years, not a big deal. But I'm thinking, if someone's had it for a long time, they've been parking out in the field, just the cumulative effect of being out there. Right. It's not a guaranteed problem, but it's a potential. So it's not a deal breaker, but one of those things you look for. So if it's stored like on cement, it's like, yeah, that's usually an indication that a lot of the other boxes will be checked and looking. If it's not, then it's like, well, not necessarily a deal breaker, but something to be aware of.
Can we talk a little bit? And it sounds like, Lisa, this is really your area. Like how do you get into the design? How do you come up with the, what you're going to be doing, or where do you gather your ideas? Can you kind of walk us through that one?
I started out with just using what I had extra of from our house projects. So the first couple trailers I just used, I had bought an extra paint for the front door and I didn't like the color of it. So I had this almost full gallon of paint. So that was the color of my first two trailers. I check and I see if there's anything that I can keep, like what are the color of the countertops? Are they weird blue or purple, or are they neutral, and can I work with them? And then as the years have gone on, it's fun to try out new styles, because I'm not always changing my home, and my home I keep somewhat neutral, but in a trailer they're meant for fun. Like, why not have fun with the design? So yeah. So I do that.
Now I'll say, before we even get the trailer, you usually push me and say, hey, you know what? Cabinet color is going to be this one on the next one. These are going to be the poles.
Yeah.
This is going to be, you have more of a vision.
Yeah.
This sounds so familiar.
And so she's always thinking about like what she wants to do. So when we do when you do find one, she knows exactly what she wants to do.
I use Pinterest for ideas, or I make design boards, a mood board for each trailer I do to see how it goes together. On the last trailer, I used the exterior color. It had yellow in it. And I was like, I don't want to in my head, I had a different plan for what I wanted to do for my next trailer. But because it had the yellow on the outside, I was like, I have to figure out how to bring the yellow into the design so that when someone buys it, they think it all goes together, not like this
cohesive.
outside is dated, but the inside
Yeah, you want
completely
everything
different.
to flow together with the
Right.
outside, the older style to blend with the inside, be updated, but updated right.
Are you guys updating the exteriors then? Like, have you done any exterior painting and
I
that kind of
haven't
thing?
yet.
Mostly cleaning. Yeah, most of
Yeah.
them need a heavy cleaning, but
Right.
I would like to.
Mhm.
This last one I bought at the end of summer. It with COVID and everything, it was really hard to find a trailer to this year.
Yeah.
People, you guys probably know all
Yeah,
about
camping
that.
was big.
Right. Everybody.
Yeah.
So I found one at the very end of camping season in Oregon, and I usually try and sell them before it gets rainy because then I don't want to have them opened up, and also people aren't camping as much, so they don't sell as well. So I was like cruising through it, trying to get it done before summer ended. Maybe on the next one, we'll see.
Yeah, we haven't done a lot of exterior stuff yet either.
No.
I mean, like you said, like a lot of them
Power
need
washing. And,
right. So we've removed graphics, like if the graphics are really shoddy, really peeling,
Okay.
but that was kind of a headache.
That can
so.
make a big difference.
Yeah.
Yeah, some of those graphics can date it really quick, and just the
Oh, for
cleanliness.
sure.
I want to jump back on some of the interior stuff, but I just thought of something. Is there a certain brand or line you have done more often than not, or kind of look for more often than not?
So I think the brand that I've done the most is just Coleman. I've done 2 Colemans, but other than that, I've done several other brands too. So tent trailers are all somewhat similar in layout,
And features,
in features. The size can vary somewhat.
Yeah, I think one thing I did learn was the bed size. I think there's queen, king.
And then there's a full.
Yeah. And so depending on, because I know when we tried to sell one, we had a couple people who were pretty tall, and the beds were.
On one of them was like 2 folds.
Two
or
folds,
something.
and so
It
they
was
didn't
too
even
small.
fit in the beds.
That's so
And
weird.
so it's like, yeah.
We learn as we go along.
Yeah.
Like we probably should get one that at least has one queen or king size bed.
Yeah.
Lisa, you mentioned, or maybe Wes, you mentioned along the way, like reupholstering. Is that so? Do you actually reupholster cushions? Like you sew them, or do you kind of cover and staple? Do you just find covers that go over things? Like what's your approach there?
Yes, to
All
all
the
those
above.
things, all the above. So the first one I found, the 70s one, the guy actually had the cushions recovered recently, or he had zippered cushions. So I just took them off, washed them, and put them back on. That was
perfect.
the easiest time I had.
Yeah.
But since then, I've hired someone to sew cushions. I took a sewing class and learned how to sew them myself.
Wow.
Impressive.
We've done, it was like my fingers were bleeding. It was the one with the white vinyl cushions too. So there was blood all over the
It was
white
red vinyl when we're done, but
Oh, no.
changes the design to Valentine style.
It felt good to learn something new. And if there isn't
Yeah.
something, we can learn it. But then I've been doing fold and staple method. We came up with kind of our own fold and staple method where it can look finished. And
Yeah.
I think with my sewing skills or lack of sewing skills, that actually looked better than the ones that I did try and sew myself.
Do you mind unpacking that at all, or is this proprietary information? Is this
So I do the fold and staple method around the cushion.
So that's like a board underneath, right?
The board underneath, and you wrap it like you're wrapping a present. And then I get plywood.
Thin, about an 1/8 inch thin plywood. And so you get a sheet of that. And so it doesn't add much to it, but it actually gives you a nice, that you can wrap the fabric around.
Yeah. And then you wrap the plywood like you would wrap a present. And then we screwed the plywood onto the back of the cushion. So it looks all finished on the back and you can't see the staple marks or anything.
You put those all around the back, and it doesn't even have to be that pretty, because that 1/8 inch board that you wrap, you're going to put that on there. And then you put a couple small head screws all the way around in a nice even pattern. They're not very noticeable, but it gives a nice clean, because that will go over and cover all those ugly staples that you put in from the previous one. because we found that, the cushions are a big part, and you have to, I mean, at least for us, for designing them, the cushion color is big. And so especially you want it to be functional too. So we found fabric that's easily wipeable and easily clean. And so.
Have you guys made like a YouTube or reel or anything on that process?
I added it to my saved stories under my bio on Instagram. Yeah.
We will be turning it into a video soon. I think it's one of those things, because I think it's a common question, and it's a very visual one, because trying to describe it is one thing, but especially folks doing it for the first time, doing the visual walkthrough is definitely on the agenda.
Us included. There's a lot of people that would benefit from seeing that for sure. Like, we only tried to do it once, and it worked, but it wasn't pretty if you looked on the underside. So.
Well, the nice thing about this one is that I think it's not too complicated, and it's hard to really make it look wrong. But if you do the right steps, then it looks great, So it's actually I don't know, it's a good job for you to come up with that.
It saved a lot of time, and there was a lot less blood on the material.
And that's really like one of our main objectives with doing this podcast, is just to try to hopefully provide a little bit of entertainment with great stories, like the two of yours, but also just help empower people with more information, because we've definitely personally benefited from shared information on YouTube and Instagram and all that sort of thing. So the more when we get sweet nuggets like this from somebody like you and pass it along, that's really what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
So.
It's a great idea. I'm excited to hear the rest of your podcasts and learn from it too.
Do you guys ever make it out to Oregon?
We haven't. We actually ventured out to like Yellowstone in 2019.
The plan was to
get to Portland, but we didn't make it quite that far.
Long story short, for another time, we broke down in the Badlands for a while, and that kind of changed the schedule, and we got the Yellowstone. And so we turned around, but it was a great trip. So.
Well, we also probably had a little bit too big of an RV for our truck, and we were nervous about driving through the
passes and stuff, because the winds, for us on the plains were pretty intense, and so then I imagine like going through those gorges and.
Yeah,
I don't know. A pop-up would have been nice at that point. That would have been like no stress, no white knuckles, no trailer brakes. That would have been terrific.
That reminded me of a story. Wes's parents bought a trailer. Was it last year?
Yeah,
and
I think so.
They went down to California, but they had the big Santa Ana winds during that time. And they were driving on the freeway, and the whole side of their trailer blew off.
It completely ripped off stuff all over the freeway just from the wind. It ripped it off like a banana peel. And it was this. He sent me a photo of it, and I was just like, "Oh no!" It's like, how do you clean that up?
That was their first trip too.
Yeah, first use of it.
That seems insane.
Because my dad's very particular and he's very handy, and so when he buys something, it's usually you don't get that type of surprise, because it was one of those trailers that it smelled nice, it looked great, it was roomy, it was, truck could easily tow it, no issues. And then it's just those things that happen. Fortunately, he has his tools with him, and he's able to repair it. And
he had a bunch of screws, and he just screwed a bunch on it. He duct taped just on the side of the road.
You guys do come from handy DIY.
Yes.
Because I go, what would you do if that didn't work? He's like, I'd probably unhitch it and just drive away if it got much worse.
I think that's what most people would do.
He's like, that far from home, but no, it worked out, and they were able to get it repaired. And
so that was smart that you guys turned around and went back at that
recognizing what damage winds can do.
So kind of backing up, what is your whole process once you buy a tent trailer? I mean, where do you start? Kind of with like the cleaning process?
Yeah, exactly. So I start with the cleaning. I just thoroughly clean out the inside and the outside and the canvas, try and clean everything. And then I decide usually by then I've decided if I'm going to change the countertops or the fixtures, and I do that. A lot of times I've used countertop paint or appliance epoxy on the countertops, or we've used quartz for stationary pieces. So with tent trailers, as you guys know, like the stove flips over, the sink, everything has to go down low so it can close up. But there's long runs sometimes with benches or side
storage.
So you've used solid surface, you use quartz, like, wow.
like a 1 cm, like very thin quartz, so it doesn't weigh too much. And
yeah, quartz comes in several different thicknesses. Most folks in their kitchen does 3 cm, and it's very heavy. There's a rarity that you can find 2 cm, which is about 3/4 inch. Or for showers, oftentimes stone shops will use 1 cm. The surface looks the same. It's just thinner. And so we have a stone shop here, and they had some remnants, and the weight itself, the nice thing about quartz is it really can't break. So it's not a breakage issue or something like that, because I wouldn't put granite in, because granite going down the road would probably crack. Then you got repairs. But quartz is strong, but the 1 cm makes it very light, and the thickness doesn't add much elevation to your counters. So when you go to close up the trailer, the slides still slide in, things can still shut down, close up. So we've done 1 cm, and it was kind of, I think the people that bought it were like, we've always wanted granite counters.
Now
they got them in a trailer. So it's one of those things that people are like, huh? But when you distribute the weight, because it really didn't add much weight. I can't remember how much. It was like maybe, I don't know. It wasn't much at all, because I could easily carry each piece by myself, like with one hand. And
it was inexpensive.
And it was inexpensive,
if you go to a granite shop, you can get a remnant, and then you just have to pay for the labor of them cutting the piece.
Cutting it to size and polishing.
Awesome.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I would have never thought to add quartz to any camper,
Way
but
to make them high
definitely
end.
a pop-up. So
definitely pop-ups. It was and I think most people understandably would be like, no, what are you doing? That doesn't make sense. But when you do it right and you secure it right, you want to make sure you actually adhere it correctly. That way it doesn't, ever shift on you going down the road. But
so after the countertops, then I work on the cabinets, I sand them down, prime, paint them.
by hand or with a sander, or what?
I use a sander and by hand in the spaces I
for the
need
tight
to,
spots.
and then I prime them and paint them and change out the hardware, and then flooring, and then last I do upholstery, curtains and cushions.
We found that flooring is great to find like on Craigslist or Marketplace, because you really only need a box and a half. And most folks, when they have it done with a project, they'll have a box, 2 boxes extra. And so you usually get that high quality stuff for very cheap.
Yeah, $20.
$20 for
your
Oh my
flooring for the
gosh.
trailer or something.
That's awesome. And are you using like luxury vinyl or sticky floors, or what are you using?
So we've done a lot of different things. The first one I did the sticky floor, and I don't think I would do. I wouldn't do that
strongly
again.
I recommend not doing that.
No, that's what we did too.
Why would you say no? Or like what?
Just because it can peel up with temperature changes.
Very temperature sensitive. Yeah.
But since then we did bamboo, like hardwood bamboo, because there was remnants for $10, and we were like, why not? It fits under the cabinet.
It fit, and if you leave some expansion gaps that you cover with trim, nice clean trim, then you're good.
And we've done laminate,
LVT,
we've done just about everything.
Yeah.
I laugh to myself when you say, well, most people have a couple boxes left. We actually just did luxury vinyl on our main floor, and I don't know what it's like 1,000 square feet ish or something like that. I'm still wrapping up the project with the baseboard and all that kind of stuff. But when I was done, I had 2 pieces left.
Oh,
Whoa!
That was a close call.
It's like, is this efficiency, or maybe I should have fluffed my numbers just a little more? But
That's great.
But that's a great tip. Like
sure.
like you said, you see that. I see that a lot if I'm like scrolling through Marketplace. Is that where you guys look, Marketplace, or is there a different?
Marketplace. When we started, Marketplace wasn't really a thing yet, so it was Craigslist. But usually Marketplace.
seems to be the
Is that
best,
where you buy the actual rigs too? Is Marketplace, or where are you finding?
So Craigslist and Marketplace, and I look at OfferUp too sometimes, but I haven't ever found one on there or bought one on there. But Craigslist and Marketplace are my go-tos.
I feel like out here Craigslist has really died. Like even like last year there was more inventory on it, like for everything. I feel like all of a sudden it's really dried up, but I have my own, like we have our frustrations with Marketplace too, because I feel like there's not always like a rhyme or reason like how the listings are served or how you find, just find stuff. Like sometimes it's infuriating, especially if like something goes for sale that you would have liked and it's just down the road and you didn't see it for 3 days for some reason. Because I feel like the algorithm just didn't want you to see it or something. I don't know.
Yeah. It wasn't meant to be.
Yes, I understand that frustration.
Yeah.
Are you guys using those tools to list and sell too? Like how? So when you finish it up, what's your process then?
So before it was through Craigslist, but now it's through Marketplace. But I've also sold, one of them I sold through Instagram.
Oh, wow.
That's awesome.
But I try to sell to local people. So that person from Instagram lived in a town over, so it worked out fine. But sometimes I have people on Instagram ask about buying a trailer, and we just sell them if they're local or if they're willing to travel here.
Yeah.
Yeah, we currently, at the time we record this, we have a travel trailer for sale, and there's been a lot of interest. Well, so it's winter, it's February, so it's not really RV season in Wisconsin. A lot of people aren't thinking about it yet, but a lot of our interest has come from all over the country. And so it's been a lot of trying to figure out like shipping costs, because we're not obviously going to deliver something, to California or something, but that's been like a real interesting concept that people would shop out of market.
And ship them off.
It is interesting. A newer problem with the internet and how you can sell things now, I guess.
Yeah, none of it's come to fruition yet. It'd just be easier with a local purchase, but wherever it ends up, we'll be happy with it. So,
what do your guys' kids think about the process? Do they ever get involved, or do they kind of just steer clear?
Yeah, they get involved. They want to help paint, and they love playing in them. We use it when we have it popped up in our side yard. The kids use it to play in, or we'll do a movie night out there.
Oh, fun.
Like you'll project or like take a TV out there? Or
We put a projector out there.
So we'll sit on one side on one bed, and then on the other side we'll close it up so it's dark. And so we'll put the projector, because typically the screens are like a light tan or white. So it's a great service just to put the projector, and then you can just have a little movie night out there.
Idea.
That's such a cool idea.
Have you outfitted any of the rigs with this feature, like the pop-ups with this feature?
That's a good idea.
Typically, not yet, but I think as you get good with the other stuff. It's like, well, what amenities can we add? You got granite counters or quartz counters. Might as well have a theater put in. Yeah. So no, that's.
Are there any features that you steer clear of? Like, have you done ones that have toilet showers, that sort of thing? Does that cause a problem one way or the other?
Yeah, I haven't done the toilet shower yet. For our own personal camping, I would love to have a toilet, especially with kids, like having to walk them to the bathroom.
Right.
That's one thing I think with pop-up trailers, it's tricky. It's not having a bathroom a lot of times. Yeah. I would love to do one that does.
That probably was one of the things that forced our transition.
Yeah.
I think was.
Well, we ended up retrofitting ours with a little like toilet.
We never used it, but we did. I took out something. I took out a cabinet and then built, it was, I don't know, compostable or I don't know what it was called, but like just kind of a portable toilet. I didn't want to go empty it, so I was like,
so we did this, and then he was never
I was like, if you want to use it, you need to empty it. And so
these are the rules.
You use it, you clean it.
Who do you typically find that your buyers are? Is there some sort of like niche that they're fitting into, or is it pretty broad?
So it's been somewhat broad. The first people we sold to, it was a family, and they were going to live in it.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
While her husband was working in somewhere else in Texas or something.
Yeah.
That was unique. I sold one to ladies that just didn't like staying in hotels, so they wanted a trailer.
I think they were actually driving through Portland on a road trip, and she happened to wake up in the hotel after not having a good night. She decided to look, and she saw. She's like, "That's it. I'm coming right now." I'm not doing another hotel. And this is exactly what I want. So she, as she drove through town, happened to see it, saw it, loved it, picked it up, and away she went.
That's amazing.
But yeah, it's been kind of all over the map.
Most of them seem to be first-time owners of a trailer. And
Okay.
so
That's true.
I think that is one of the consistents. And so we try to walk through the correct process. I think oftentimes we'll do a printout of how to open and close it, just because we put so much work into it, and you really find the really good gems that you want to go to good home. We want them to see them really enjoy it. And so my fear is always that
They're going to break it. Like
they
learn how
do
to
something
use it.
out of order,
Yeah,
and they
they'll do
realize that,
54
oh, I didn't
54
know.
cranks instead of 50.
Yeah.
54.
You did 55, it's 54. Yeah.
Well, like I mentioned, I put some rips in one of those window covers. And I was like, oh gosh, like, I should have known better.
I try to reduce that learning curve, because there's a learning curve, I think, for trailer pop-ups, because there's a certain process, and it's I find it's very critical to follow that. Even for us, we'll go through, and if you rush it, that's usually when you get a problem. Something tweaks, something breaks, you're forcing something. And
We've done videos for people on
Yeah.
the process. Just
That's a good idea.
be like, here's the printout, here's a video.
I want you to completely love this thing, because we've loved it, and
Well, that's great. It sounds like you're really sending them and equipping them with all the tools to properly do it.
Hope so.
yeah, I hope so. That's the goal. So make sure they're well equipped and enjoy it. So
How many of these have you done now? Do you know an exact number or guesstimation?
Yeah.
Or?
So it's just a hobby. I don't do it for full time. So I usually do 1 or 2 a year, and we've done 5.
Wow.
yeah, typically, at this point we'll get one and we'll use it, or we'll get one, fix it up, use it, and then towards the end of the season we'll sell it. So
That's so perfect.
when you get them,
Yeah.
I love them. It's nice to have them to take out and enjoy.
Right.
But at the same time, like our storage where we have it, I don't really want to store them through the winter necessarily. But we have.
Well, in an RV is typically something most people I don't know the numbers on this, but I would assume most people buy an RV, they're not making money after using it. It's one of those things.
Right.
It's obviously a depreciating asset in most
not
cases.
an investment.
So, yeah, you guys, doing that is just so smart. And you guys have gotten acclaim for this at this point too, right? Like you've been featured in Wall Street Journal and Insider and some places like that, right? Talk about that a little bit. Like that's a big deal.
It was surprising. It's crazy how, I love the Instagram trailer community and like what opportunities have come because of that. And it's been that surprise, like a lot of surprises like that.
Because you even spoke for a class, a college class on design, on trailers specifically.
Are you serious?
Oh,
wow.
Yeah. Oregon State University, their interior design club asked if I would speak and tell them about what I've done. And so I got to talk about that. That was a lot of fun, but I didn't get a degree in interior design, so I felt a little off, but I just told them that I wished I did, and I would have been better off if I had. But
well, it's just a great example, of doing, it's not, obviously it's just, I think that's what almost the epitome of what this community is. I don't have a construction background or, didn't grow up even, like you guys being super like handy, but the more you do, the more you learn and you figure things out. And YouTube and Instagram, like you said, are such a great asset. And so I think that's a great example for all those kids too, or all the students, that obviously they're learning all the principles and stuff, but at the end of the day, you got to get out there and do it.
Exactly. The community's been really great. Yeah. And, especially sharing information. I know for Rice Camp, she does a certain hashtag that she likes to feature.
Yeah.
Trailer Tip Tuesday.
Tip Tuesday.
So I try to, I learn a lot through that too. People, if they use the hashtag Trailer Tip Tuesday and tag me, then on Tuesdays I try to share camping tips or trailer tips or renovation tips so that everyone can learn something new together. And people have such great little tips that I've never even thought of. It's been fun to hear.
Yeah, from maintenance to storage to cleaning to all the whole wide range, which is a great a great thing that you started because you save those right in your.
Yeah, they're in my saved stories
Mhm.
under my bio on Instagram.
Yeah, and that's so great. And that's just, again, going back to, it's just people like you who are just furthering, the growth of the community and furthering information. And, that's one of the things, for us, it's exciting. This is a lot of work, but it's fun when you're learning things along the way and finding ways to make things easier. I mean, that's always a win.
Yeah.
Like I mentioned before, it's like, well, no one fixes up trailers. That's just not what you do. But she's like, no, this is a great opportunity. And the momentum in this and just the popularity that's been growing, especially with COVID, because people want to get out and do stuff, but they can't go out and do stuff, but they can do stuff remote or, go travel somewhere to be by themselves. To be ahead of that curve is pretty cool.
And to see on Instagram, there's other people.
Yeah,
like
there's
you
other
guys,
community,
and
other people doing it and be able to connect and meet.
When we started doing this, we were like, there's no way other people are doing this. Oh, yes, there is.
There's a whole community. So,
and that's just Instagram. Obviously there's all the other social medias and all the people that don't want to be on social media who are doing this. So I think there's a good, healthy community out there. If I were to ask you, like, what is the most important tool to you for our RV renovation? Could you come up with an answer on the spot about that one? And if you don't have an answer for that,
that's coming with the hard questions, Darren.
Yeah, this is we threw you enough softballs. No more softballs.
That was just the warm up.
Yeah.
But I would say the best, I don't know if this is technically a tool, but I would say the best thing that we've done would be just be really careful which trailer you buy. Like use your five senses to make sure it doesn't smell, make sure you don't see any water damage, you don't feel any moisture. Like just be careful about which one you buy before you buy it, because there can be a lot of problems with trailers. So the best thing I would say is just be really careful.
Yeah, because you want to be able to enjoy it. And, if you got something that's over your head, then that could really put a bad taste in your mouth. And, worst thing is to get halfway through a project and not be able to finish it. And then, it's a money pit at that point. And then,
unless you want that, there's some people.
Yeah, and some people got the time and the resources and the space, and that's what they're looking for. So I think maybe I'm being clear on exactly what you want to take on and what you don't want to take on. I think it's the surprises, trying to minimize.
We're in that same boat. Like whenever we're doing inspections, we're trying to stay away from water damage, because we had one real bad experience where we got into something we didn't expect, and we had to replace this, whole slide floor and walls and that sort of thing.
Oh man.
No.
But like you said, there's some people that are just they're willing to take that on. They'll tear it down all the way to just the frame or whatever and rebuild all the wood and the subfloor. But if we can avoid that, I definitely that's where my aim is.
Because I think it comes back to the cost versus reward. Because a lot of times what you end up getting back for those, by the time if you do got to tear it down, it's like, can you make your money back on it? Right. And so once you go down that road, the cost and the time gets so deep that, but some people's goal isn't necessarily to make money. It's just to fix it up.
Lisa, like, what's your favorite place, or where do you feel like you find design inspiration or the renovation inspiration from? Is there one tool or place that you use more than another?
Again, with the hard-hitting questions.
No more softballs.
I look on Pinterest a lot for ideas. I would probably say there, just in nature, like looking around at colors and things that I like. And
I think you're always looking on some level, whether you're on a walk looking at someone's house, to walk through the store, to walk,
creepy.
And not on the inside of their house. I'm just saying.
Looking in the windows.
Yeah, that's another podcast. No, I think, you're always looking for it. So, that inspiration comes from all over. I think a good one is Pinterest. But, I think even seeing what other folks are working on and kind of collaborating, pulling ideas from what other folks in the community are doing and seeing what works. A
lot of like home designs or things that I would want to try in my home, but maybe we've already done and we're not quite ready to remodel it again. Then I'm like, well, I'll try this idea in a trailer. So it gives me a creative outlet. there.
And then you guys sort of alluded to the fact that, there's been an explosion in, interest in this sort of like subcategory of RV renovation. You mind reflecting on that even just a little bit more? Just, what you've noticed, since the time, you've been involved in this and just the overall growth. Like, what do you think of it all?
I feel like growing up, like, oh, families have RVs sometimes, retired people do. But then ever since COVID hit, even more so, it's like just so people felt safe this past year, they didn't want to stay in a hotel maybe, or stay somewhere else, or be close to people. So camping is a great alternative to that. So I know that's really driven up the RV sales. And hopefully people that try it out this year fall in love with it and they see how great it can be. So
yeah, I will say it seemed like when we first started looking, there was more options. I mean, maybe they were sitting on the market longer, so people were selling them, not realizing kind of what they had. I know several ones we've seen where people are like, oh, we've had it for 20 years and now the kids are out of the house and we want something different, and so, but it seems like there's been a decline on those, maybe because of popularity. So those ones usually go really quick. So I've noticed just finding the right one, you got to be really patient. So that I think has changed, where before you had maybe a couple options. Now it's like, hey, this is good. We got to act on it quick. And the prices, even on the older ones, or heavily used ones, have been creeping up as well. So that's less of them to find and paying more to get them.
Is there a magic price point that you try to stay within? Is there like a target? I mean, assuming that you'll flex that depending on what it is, but is there a magic number?
It kind of depends on each one, because if it's really good, pay a little bit more. If it needs a little more work, so that's kind of knowing. I think after you do a few, you kind of realize what costs what. And so you can look at it and be like, well, that one's worth this amount. And, kind of gauge. So that way you can still.
The year is a big deal.
Year's big.
The size.
And the size.
The tent trailer and the time of year a lot. So camping season in Oregon is from like June until September is like the main time. And then it slows way down once the rain starts, especially for tent trailers. If you can find one in an off season, then you can get a better deal than if you were to buy one in mid camping season. So we've
certainly noticed, here too. I mean, it's winter here, so inventory is low. I probably, anyway, but just, in the last 6, 8, 12 months, like it's hard, like you said, Wes, it's hard. If something pops up and it's good and it's at a good price, it's not going to last. So if you don't jump on it right away, you can't mull over it, even for a few days in most cases. So,
right.
Yeah, chances are there's probably multiple bids.
Right. Are you guys currently looking for a tent trailer to renovate?
I feel like I'm always looking. There really isn't that much usually here until April when it stops raining or slows down raining, I guess I should say. Then people will open them up and take pictures and sell them. So
sure.
Springtime is usually when I can find one.
Yeah, I'll get messages pretty regularly saying, hey, what do you think about this one? As I'm working or something. So it'll be,
Do you guys ever feel like you'll look in other genres, like whether it's, travel trailer or fifth wheel or anything like that? Or do you think this is it? This is a good spot for you?
Yeah, I think so. We've talked about, just for us, taking a road trip and seeing all the national parks. And we thought if we do that, it would be nice to have a bathroom and maybe a little more space. So I think we will sometime. We just have to figure out like space wise and towability and all of that.
Yeah, storage and all the other stuff that goes with it. So I wouldn't mind, especially as the kids get older, you need a little bit more space. And so, I wouldn't mind growing into that. But for right now, I think this is a good little pocket of the trailer community to kind of get an expert on. So.
Yeah, no, it's a great niche, and just to identify, find something and, know what you're good at and stay with it. I mean, that's awesome. And for us, we're just staying with kind of these mid-sized travel trailers, and, we can't do large rigs at this moment, just because of space and that sort of thing.
The nice thing about a pop-up is that just the audience who you go to sell to, like I mentioned before, a lot of them are the first time people getting into trailers. And so having something that's easily towed and stored is very kind of appealing. You got a broader audience. And I think the larger you go, the audience kind of gets smaller. I know
down,
a father-in-law has got a fifth wheel, and I'm like, man, it'd be great to have something like that. But then it's the storage and the bigger truck. And then who's going to buy that? What kind of budget do they have? And all this, it just gets a little more complex.
What we do, I think, appeals largely to first timers as well, but they don't necessarily realize all those potential, not like roadblocks, but those other things. We've had it more than once where someone's come out and been like, oh, okay, so my Subaru probably won't tow this 7,000 pound trailer, or whatever it is. And there's a lot of things that, to be learned and figure that all out. And I remember being so overwhelmed by, trying to figure out towing vehicles and that, we had never owned a truck prior. So I just thought like all trucks could tow everything and they're all created equal and the same. And, when you realize that that's not true, it's like, there's a lot.
For a couple of years ago, I had at work, we had a trailer and I was coming back, and I'd gone over some a railroad crossing. I don't know, I think it was a late night. It was like, I don't know, like 11 o'clock at night or something like that. But the trailer bounced off the hitch, and I'm going through the intersection like, how am I going to get this thing back on? How am I going to? And you realize, that's why you got the chains. That's why you got the other thing. So fortunately, it didn't go off into the ditch, but I did put a gigantic gouge through the street.
Oh, wow.
And as I'm getting out, I'm by myself. I'm like, man, I don't even know what to do here. Like trying to figure out how to get it back on, what problems, I didn't know. Fortunately, a guy, there's no one else on the road in the middle of nowhere. A guy who's behind me happened to see the whole thing. He was a big guy, very big dude. He came out, he looked at it, he kind of gave me a head nod. He picked up the trailer and put it back on the hitch, pulled out a couple tools, reconnected it. He said, "You're good." He got in his truck and took off.
He was like your guardian.
I bet that guy was an angel because I don't know how my other options were, And so with that, what would have been, a nightmare turned into be a blessing. But one of those things about, getting into trailers and towing, what goes into, properly securing them and making sure the connections are done right. Because if it goes sideways, you can go sideways fast, and and have a respect for that.
I think you probably realized it then, but I also realized it with our second trailer. George, the guy we bought it from, and we also named the trailer after George.
Yeah, we name all our trailers after the owners.
He was missing a finger.
Oh yeah.
And he had lost the finger while he was hitching up the trailer.
On the trailer.
On the pop-up?
Oh my gosh. Like I didn't realize like how bad this could go. Like it was a wake-up call to me, like, okay, I got to be really careful with towing and hitching up the trailer.
Connecting it and just reconnecting, disconnecting it. Wow. His finger's in the wrong spot, and they're not a lot of weight, but there's enough weight to do some damage if to a finger specifically. So I forgot about him.
That's right. Insane.
Oh, George.
George.
Yeah, we haven't named our rigs yet. We need to. We know that's something we need to do, but that's a good idea to name it after the previous owners. Yeah. That's funny.
How many trailers have you guys done? You guys have.
We're on
done
6
a few.
Right now,
okay.
I think.
Yeah, 6 or are we at 7?
Something like that. Yeah. So.
6.
Yeah. So counting one pop-up, but yeah, we would, I think, we'd definitely be open to doing another one. So
yeah,
totally interested in, when you guys put out that video or whatever resources you have out now, because I feel like whenever April shows me a pop-up listing, and again, like Wes, I'd be like, what do you think of this one? I'm always like thinking to myself, that's a lot of cushions. Like that's like, for some reason, that's the part that overwhelms me. I'm like, what are we going to do with all, because they usually are, they're usually just, the big banquettes or whatever.
Right.
And
so true.
So figuring out a clean, professional way to do that would be awesome.
The great thing about renovating a pop-up is that it's usually pretty simple. So when I see a bigger RV, I'm like, I get intimidated by that. Like, it would take so much. Yeah, it's a small house. So it would take more, but pop-ups are so small. It goes pretty quick and it's pretty simple. So I would love to see you guys do a pop-up again.
We'll turn to you for inspiration.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you.
So yeah, I think that I mean, it was great. You guys shared a lot of good stories, good information. I mean, is there anything else that you wanted to like touch on, or anything that you want to promote at all?
Yeah, just check me out and follow me on Instagram. It's Rice Camp, Rice_camp. And if you have any trailer tips, use the hashtag Trailer Tip Tuesday and tag Rice Camp, and I will share it in my stories. Right now, those are the places to go to.
No, and we've taken part in Trailer Tip Tuesday a few times.
I love it.
April does a lot of our social media, so I don't always get to see it, but
Nice. I appreciate that.
We do get some other stuff in the works that we hope to be launching. So stay tuned, because hopefully, as we find out, the information, the resources we have, like the cushions and stuff, and offering that up is something we'd like to eventually do to help out the community more.
Ooh,
Awesome.
surprises.
Yeah.
Stay tuned.
Cool, guys. Well, thanks for your time.
Yeah, thanks so much,
And
guys.
enjoyed speaking with you and everything. So wish you luck with everything in the future, and hopefully we can do this again sometime or catch up somewhere down the road. So
Yeah.
That'd be great. And if you're ever in the Portland or Oregon area, let us know. It'd be
we
great
need
connect.
to.
Yeah,
It's like definitely
it's on our list.
a place that's called to us, like it has, I'm sure, to a lot of people. It's there's a big population boom out there, was out there, but and we're big fans of Portlandia, and so that's exactly what it's like out there, right? That's
Unfortunately, it is.
Exactly.
It is. It's a documentary, I think.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
A great chat with Lisa and Wes of Rice Camp.
I feel like we could have kept talking to them for hours. They have so much great information and stories about RV renovation.
Be sure to go give Rice Camp a follow on Instagram, and of course use their hashtag Trailer Tip Tuesday with all your RV tips and tricks.
And keep up with all of our personal renovations on New Look RV on both Instagram and YouTube.
Be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. Thanks so much for listening, guys.
See you next time.